Well, that's the end of Deep Space Nine's inaugural season, so let's cast our minds back and see what we've learned. Benny Sisko had a pretty bad day, resulting in a dead wife and a kaboomed ship that he was technically responsible for at the time. Despite this, Starfleet Command decided to put him in charge of an entire space station just a couple of years later, possibly thinking he's got less chance of exploding something that doesn't move. They're proven wrong, as during his first week in charge, it moves. To be fair to him, we can't blame that one on Sisko, as he was meeting some maybe gods at the time. The discovery of a stable wormhole and subsequent massive spike in traffic means this is precisely the last place you'd want to put a broken officer in charge, but he's there now, and Starfleet operates a strict policy of no takesy-backsies. Just as well, then, that those maybe gods have helped him get over the death of his wife, so he can focus all of his energy on dealing with whatever bollocks gets thrown at him each week, whether that's the political complications of a formerly oppressed species finding their feet, or a new alien flying through the wormhole for a quick shufty around or trying to kill us. Sounds pretty dangerous, so let's take a closer look at the people who'll be dealing with all this nonsense. The pilot episode, Emissary, showed us that Benjamin Sisko didn't want this job in the first place. Being on talking terms with omniscient aliens who can create wormholes has a way of making you re-evaluate your priorities though, and he decided to hang around. It's not all fun and games, as it also means he's now both revered and feared by the local population, who consider his new mates to be gods. That means he's front and centre for any political nonsense that crops up in the still fragile new government here, and their religious leaders can't agree on whether he's amazing or a right arsehole. Maybe Vedek Sin, the Delphic douchebag, decided being his enemy was the safer option, as the one who liked him the most, Kaiopaka, ended up on a perpetual murder planet. Former freedom fighter turned high-ranking military officer and political liaison, Kira Nerys is struggling to deal with her life pivoting from the brutal but simple nature of resistance to the equally brutal but far more complicated world of having to deal with other people. Kira probably got the most to do this season, with past prologue, progress, and duet all serving to underline the difficult transition to peace and the change in mindset it requires. In the Hands of the Prophets also taught her that her own people can be every bit as callous and manipulative as the people she's hated her whole life, while exploiting her faith to boot. Sentient belly-worm Dax and its current host Jadzia serve as a grounding point for Sisko, them having known each other previously. Well, sort of. Outside of that, Dax serves as the lead doer-science person on the station, except when she's getting accused of murders committed before she was born. Dax's self-named episode tells us she values loyalty to her own detriment, and also gives us several lifetimes worth of past stuff that could turn up all of a sudden and bring adventure with it. Aside from that, the character is an exploration of how we might adapt if we lived for several hundred years, and the change in priorities that such a viewpoint could bring. Arrogant, egotistical, excitable, ruled by his genitals, Julian Bashir is everything Dax isn't. Despite his obvious genius, or perhaps because of it, he struggles with social skills and is often viewed negatively as a result. That serves a purpose, though, not only to explore Bashir himself, but also to tell us more about other characters through how they interact with him. Kira doesn't tolerate his ego, Dax sees it all as quaintly childish, O'Brien treats it as just another ordeal to endure, and Sisko ignores it as long as it doesn't get in the way. The only Bashir-focused episode in the season was sadly also a low point. The Passenger had him possessed by a mass murderer and turned proper evil. Alexander Siddig himself stated he wasn't happy with how that turned out, and it's fair to say that's an accurate assessment. Downtrodden dog's body Miles O'Brien is the guy who keeps everything running. Perpetually overworked and under-equipped, he faces each new turd thrown his way with a sort of tired resignation. Perhaps he tolerates it because he knows that if he weren't there, they'd all be dead within a week. Captive Pursuit suggests that his innate need to take something that isn't working how it should and fix it also applies to more abstract situations. Freeing Tosk is a violation of the most important rule Starfleet has, but he can't leave it alone. A good engineer understands that a system operating to specifications and a system working properly aren't necessarily the same thing. Deep Space Nine's outsider is, ironically, one of the people who's been there the longest. A member of an alien race whose origins are unknown, he hasn't spoken much about his past, save to say that his early memories are of being a subject in a laboratory. Governed by a need for justice, and well aware that this isn't the same thing as law, Odo tries to keep things as calm and quiet as he can, possibly because that's how he himself is. His professional rivalry with Quark is perhaps the closest he comes to both entertainment and friendship, a constant test of skills and imagination that partly accounts for his tolerance of the latter's dodgy dealings. The rest is likely the knowledge that, if he kicked Quark out, there's a good chance he'd be replaced by someone with lower morals. The episode A Man Alone gave us a glimpse of the prejudice that he's had to endure his entire life, something that underlines just how much of a gesture of trust he made to Lwaxana Troi in The Forsaken. And Vortex proved that he'll do what he thinks is right, even at the cost of his hunger to learn about himself. As the station's resident dodgy git, Quark has his fingers in as many pies as possible, and probably tries to charge people for the pleasure. That said, he's not entirely devoid of morals, and we've learned in The Passenger and Move Along Home that although he's willing to facilitate some deeply shady stuff performed by others, he's not prepared to involve himself or the people around him. His rivalry with Odo is reciprocal to the point where Quark's tried to defend him on a few occasions. The reasons for that are probably much the same as Odo's: enjoyment of the game and the knowledge that someone new may be worse. The Nagus allowed us a closer look at Ferengi culture in general, as well as fleshing out his brother, Rom. The pride Quark showed in Rom's ruthlessness serves as another example that Quark does actually care about the people around him, in his own way. Having your life uprooted multiple times in a few short years is damaging enough without your mum getting kaboomed in the process. Such is the life of a Starfleet child, and despite it all, Jake Sisko has turned out pretty well. Okay, his friendship with Eggnog has been the cause of a few problems as he's been convinced to go along with some shenanigans, but it's also been an opportunity for Jake to shine as a fundamentally decent person by teaching Eggnog the things he's been forbidden from learning by his father. Elsewhere, we've seen the standard growing pains topics you'd expect to see in any number of dramas or sitcoms. Misdirected anger at a lack of personal freedom and dealing with jealousy when girls are involved are well-worn tropes, but it's reasonable for them to be happening here too. You don't stop growing up just because you live in the future. There are plenty of people who say Deep Space Nine has the strongest first season of all the old Trek shows. Despite that accolade, it still manages to have some duffers like The Passenger and Move Along Home. Even those are valuable though, and offer us a little insight into why so many people have such a high opinion of it as a whole. It's worth noting that the episodes which tended to be mid or lower were those ones that could have been stories for any of the other series. Indeed, in at least one case it actually was a story submitted for the next generation that got passed on to Deep Space Nine because it wasn't quite up to scratch. I suspect it wasn't alone. The episodes that we rate most highly, then, are those that break the established Trek mould. In the Hands of the Prophets deals with politics and the exploitation of religion as an excuse by self-serving powermongers. Duet is a deep psychological piece, one that explores the nature of atrocities and hate. As an aside, Duet only exists because of budgetary restraints and a requirement to make a show that had very few special effects or costly new sets. There's probably a discussion to be had there about creativity flourishing in the face of limitations, a topic that interests me personally. There's a very strong argument for video games that favour a clear stylistic choice being better remembered than ones where considerably more money was thrown at making them bombastic spectacles, and I think there's some crossover with that phenomena here. Duet excels because it was forced to focus on characterization over kabooms, and that's a theme running through the whole season. DS9 shines when it's not trying to be TNG, despite the direction given by those in charge. It's a strong start then, albeit a typically Trek one with such wildly varying results. I think it's fair to say though that the highs are higher and the lows not so low as its siblings. We've already had one of the best stories ever seen in a series, and we're just warming up. And warming up is perhaps the best term to use. Things are going to start getting heated in our little corner of the galaxy, making the problems we've seen to date look like minor inconveniences by comparison. If you've enjoyed these videos, despite all the effort I put into making them unwatchable, you can thank, or blame, the people scrolling up the side of the screen right now. Their money funds this complete farce of a channel, and I genuinely wouldn't be able to do it without them. If you want to join them and kick a quid my way, there's a link on the screen somewhere, probably, and that'll take you to a Patreon or whatever. Rewards include an entry on the Wheel of Names, access to a Discord server, and me prattling on about specials like the cookbook review that I'm still genuinely working on despite having talked about it for literally a year by this point. The profits may exist outside of linear time, but sadly I do not. And my thanks as well to all of you who are watching. It still confuses me why so many people seem to enjoy this, but as the people of Troy once said, never look a gift horse in the mouth. I forget how that works out for them. End of summary.